Why don't we launch into today's session? My name is Brian Tormey, really excited to be here with everyone in attendance today. We've got a lot of people, here in live attendance with us, as well as becoming the pattern. We will have a number of people, I'm sure, watching this after the fact. And we've got a great panel here with us. A huge shout out and thank you to Richard and Gary and Kathleen and everyone at HGAR for hosting the Be Your Best series. We really appreciate it. It's been an honor of mine to get to be part of this for a couple of years now. Really exciting. With that, Richard, I'm going to turn it over to you to intro yourself, including, I feel like we've got to acknowledge your fully newly, role and title. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Sure. So I think we've talked about that before, but now I've transitioned to CEO of OneKey MLS 100%. And it's exciting. We're doing some exciting things. Today, you're going to be meeting our COO, Melissa King, who joined our team actually in December of last year. And we're actually implementing some of the things we're going to be talking about today. So we're really excited about the direction technology is going in the MLS space. But I do want to welcome everybody. Welcome to Be Your Best, our webinar series to share best practices for getting real estate deals done in New York. Again, I'm Richard Haggerty, CEO of OneKey MLS, the comprehensive multiple listing service for the New York region. OneKey has more than 50,000 subscribers and serves the region from Montauk to Manhattan to Monticello. OneKey hosts the Be Your Best series with Hudson Gateway Association of Realtors, which represents more than 14,000 real estate professionals in Manhattan, Bronx, Westchester, Putnam, Rockland, and Orange counties. Today, we're focusing on artificial intelligence. And goodness knows there's been a lot of news and buzz and even activity in the stock market based around AE or AI, I should say, and other technologies for our industry, and look at what's trending in the digital staging space. Our panel of experts will give us a refresh on the latest tools to help you manage transactions and get deals done. I'd like to thank Brian Tormey, president of TitleVest, for partnering with us in this series and moderating our panel discussions. TitleVest is a leading New York City-based title insurance agency and member of the First American family. TitleVest offers a full range of services for real estate property purchase and refinance transactions. TitleVest has offices in Manhattan and Westchester and engages in transactions upstate, downstate, and nationwide. TitleVest has won the New York Law Journal's Be Your Best Title Agency for the last 10 years. Now let's meet our panel. We're pleased to have with us again, because Gail, I think we decided this is going to be the third time you're here, Gail Goodman, president and CEO of MarketProof Inc. MarketProof is a real estate intelligence and analytics company. Also joining us, and we're very excited to introduce Melissa to a wider audience, is Melissa King, Chief Operating Officer of OneKey MLS. And finally, we have Eric Uzo, the New York and Connecticut area sales manager for VHT Studios, who specializes in high-quality photography and virtual staging. VHT is a subsidiary of Matterport. Gail, Melissa, Eric, thank you so much for being here. And Brian, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, thank you again, Richard, Jeff, Kathleen, Gary, the whole HGAR and OneKey team for this great series. Couple quick housekeeping items for all of us. Questions are super welcome, especially on a more, sort of fast-moving topic like today's. We're going to be diving into a lot of areas that for some people in our audience are less familiar, so you're welcome to ask questions. There's a Q&A function here in Zoom. You'll find the sort of overlapping chat bubbles either down at the bottom of your screen or possibly on the top of your screen, depending on the device you're on. And we encourage you to go put questions in there, and then I will cue them into our conversation as it fits into the flow of things. Otherwise, we'll have everyone muted during the call today, just to keep the background noise and things at a minimum. If, however, you want to voice your specific question, you're welcome to reference that, and we can, I believe, go unmute you on the panel or on the member attendees. Otherwise, please use the chat for additional commentary. If there's things you've seen, links you want to share, or sort of comments on what's being said at the panel, please feel free to use the chat for that as well. Okay, before we dive into our full agenda, Richard, we're going to do the thing I love doing with you every month is our update on stats and market moves. I think I know what I'm going to hear. I sort of think, but there's enough of this is one of the months where like I've got a little bit of a question mark. I'm not confident. I just think.
So you probably should be confident because you're here at a broken record. I probably should have just, taped what I
Recorded
said in
this.
January and just keep on playing it month after month after month.
Okay. I
Because
wasn't sure if maybe we were going to hear some new tune in this.
you may, but
Okay.
as of closed sales right now, we are still looking at, depending upon the county, trending 30% to low 30% less transactions than the previous year for single family home sales. And that also, quite frankly, translates to condos and condominiums in those markets where they have condos and co-ops. I thought we would see a trend that started to bring that number down. We do see lower numbers, interestingly, in both the Bronx and Brooklyn. When I say lower, they're trending in like 20% range. So they're certainly less than last year, but better off than some of the suburbs. Where we're seeing an increase is pending sales. And I think that could be the silver lining, because I think, we're over the debt ceiling hurdle. Right now, the other item that still is playing out is, are the Fed's going to raise the interest rate, yet again, or are they going to take the pause? And, that's still been, the one missing ingredient. But as we've said before, higher interest rates are not what's dragging this market per se. Buyers seem to have already said, yep, I know that I can deal with this. It's lack of inventory. And quite frankly, and this is actually an anecdote from a coworker of mine, who she's talking to her husband said, our property's never been worth more money. Shouldn't we consider selling? And she said, A, where are we going to go to? B, we've got a great interest rate. So I really think that's the big drag on the market. Interest rates are not affecting buyers because buyers are still, especially given the fact that rental prices keep on increasing. So renters, I think, really would love to get out and find opportunities, but those opportunities just don't exist. So that's the challenge I think we have. Hopefully that we'll see more movement in the summer, and the pending numbers seem to suggest some movement, but I still think it's going to be a challenge, primarily because of inventory.
Yeah, I think, I started using a phrase, I probably should have said it more precisely. Jonathan Miller does a fabulous job of coining a phrase and being clear. It's almost like he's trademarking. He's like, I'm making this word a phrase now. But I think
year
people
of disappointment.
Wait, say that again.
His phrase is the year of disappointment
for right now, right? The thing I started talking about a while ago, because I feel like I'm sitting in this spot myself, is I am rate locked, right? But in the flip version of how we always talk about being interest rate locked, right? I'm rate locked into my house because I cannot go buy another home and get, a 2 or 3%, a 2 or 3 handle on my interest rate on another home right now. And that to some degree locks me in. So I think we've got a lot of interest rate locking, as you're referencing, Richard.
And I think if there were choices for sellers to, say, oh, this is a great opportunity for me to upgrade or do something, that could create movement, but there's just not a lot of inventory options for them to look at. So they're just staying put.
Yeah, I think it's the record may stay on the tune it's on for a little bit here. Let's see what happens. But in the meantime, we've got some other things happening in the market that may not change the precise number of items on the market, but how the market is operating. That I'm really excited to get into the conversation with our crew here today. So for our audience today, I'll mention that we had initially sort of advertised today's Be Your Best series webinar, focused, as we've done in I think all our past years, focused on some different technologies and apps that you can use in your sort of your daily practice as a real estate practitioner, right? Real estate agent, broker, attorney, whatnot. And we brought this panel together to sort of talk through that. And the planning conversation pivoted in such a beautiful way that we sort of pivoted the whole time. Kale's smiling. I think Kale helped set
Sorry,
the pivot.
guys. It's
You
my
did.
fault.
In a good way, in a beautiful way. So I'm going to save, I've got a couple apps that we were going to talk about today. I'm going to save that content for the tail of today's meeting. If we've got time, we'll touch on it. If not, we'll get a future event, a future Be Your Best series where we just focus on some different usable daily technologies in the space, because there are a lot of cool daily use technologies that aren't AI related, that are just sort of in the more general use tool category zone that we were going to talk about. But we're going to set those to the side for the moment and dive into a really exciting conversation today on AI and the role it's playing, the regulatory side, its utility, a whole bunch of different angles that we're going to look at AI with our excellent panel here today. With that, before we dive fully into the content, we're going to launch a poll for our audience here today. So Gary, if you're game to launch that poll, we're going to ask everyone a couple questions. And we're actually going to ask these similar questions at the end and see how today's conversation influenced your answers. Okay, looks like the poll has successfully launched. So everyone should be seeing a poll in front of that sort of popped up as an in window to go answer. Okay, click through things. I can't click through them. I think you probably hit submit. There's 2 questions, click submit. We'll give it a second for people to focus on that. Okay, 2 pretty simple questions. There might be still a couple people still moving through the poll process, but with that, Kale, I'm going to turn to you first.
So I'm sorry, Brian, I had done one question at a time. So here's your first question.
Oh,
See the results right there. So it's pretty 50-50. Have you used an AI tool
results
in your real estate? So it came out as 50-50.
Okay, now it's 50-50. Okay.
And let me launch the second poll. One moment.
Okay, so the first question: have you used an AI tool in your real estate practice? Half have done so, and half haven't.
Awesome.
The answers. Wait, say that again. Kale?
Amazing.
Amazing. Yeah. And the second question: do you believe AI will benefit the organized real estate sector?
1 second.
So Gary, when you've got results, I'm not seeing the poll results, and I don't know if other people are. No. Okay, so Gary will report the private poll results. Thankfully, Gary is fully trustworthy enough so that we can trust that whatever he is telling us happened as he tallies the ballots, we trust him and the Zoom technology behind it to have gotten the count right. Okay, so we'll give a second for everyone to go vote on that.
I can't vote.
Correct. Panelists can't vote. We'd skew the results. That's, we got to let it be just the audience today.
And it's 100% for will AI be beneficial to organized real estate?
Wow.
100%.
Wow. You don't see unanimous votes like that very often in our modern world. I don't see 32 out of 32 people saying yes to the same thing very often. Okay, so 32 people replied out of our 50 something. If I don't know if Gareth, they can still access the poll later, but that's a good sampling, right? So half have used it, but 100% think it's going to add benefit. That is an interesting thing. With that, Kale, I am going to turn it over to you. You're going to walk us through a little bit of a primer on what do we mean when we say AI? Like, what are we talking about here?
All right, I got a little screen here. I'm going to share
Okay, great.
a slide for you guys.
Oh, there we go.
Good?
Yeah, we're seeing it.
Okay, cool. So this is a very simplistic slide. Over here on the left, AI, like what is it, right? So basically AI is any technology that learns and can act on its own. And there are many different branches of that, right? We see self-driving cars, we see robots. In the medical space, there's drug discovery. There's many different ways in which AI is shaped and is used. the thing that's happening right now, and the reason why there's so much conversation about it, is around largely because of one particular kind of AI, which we call natural language processing. So natural language processing is basically AI that deals with human language, right? It's an interface between a computer and us. And what we've seen over the last couple of years is the rise of Siri and Alexa, right? Those are voice recognitions, assistants. So when that sort of AI became a kind of consumer product, what we saw was Siri and Alexa. Those are closed systems. They're, from proprietary. And now what we're seeing is this explosion of something called a large language model. So a large language model is exactly what it says. It's a model of language. And what it does is it predicts what the next word is, or phrase, group of words that you are essentially looking for. And they are trained on vast amounts of data and content that is gathered up from all over the internet and other sources of data. And they're very, very vast systems, so that when you ask it something, it has a good sense of what it is that you're looking for. Now, we have all seen in the news how these things can, what we call, hallucinate and go off in wrong directions. A lawyer recently submitted a brief with stuff that was totally made up, right, in a court, because they are predicting, and the predictions sometimes go wrong. But regardless about these, this is a huge step forward in the use of AI that took everyone kind of by surprise. And so that came in first in the form of ChatGPT, which is essentially a consumer product that takes a large language model and combines it with a chatbot. So it gives it a nice, easy, friendly way for everyone to use the technology. And so when these technologies find the right form factor, they can take off, and ChatGPT is one of the greatest examples of that we've ever had. It reached 1 million users in something like 5 days. And I think at this point, it's well past 100 million users. So now we have Google Bard and a whole bunch of others, and this whole thing is just accelerating. And the reason why it became the topic for today, to kind of amplify what Brian was saying, is that we started talking about it, and it's the topic of conversation for everybody everywhere. Like, what is this stuff? Why is this now? So that's just a little bit of background on what it is. There's lots of different kinds of AI, and I think Melissa's going to talk a little bit about how AI can help MLSs, and we can talk a little bit about how AI will be helpful to you guys, brokers. At Market Proof, we created a AI assistant for writing listing descriptions, and then we have some other AI stuff that we're working on. So we can get into all that. I'll pass back to you, Brian. Hopefully that was understandable.
Yeah, beautifully said, beautifully done, and kudos on the press on your for sort of like really well functioning, well working AI driven tool in the local market. With that, we're going to turn to Eric first, because Eric, I think you're going to tell us a bit about VHT and sort of behind it Matterport and some of that as a technology tool, which I think most of our transactional real estate community is very familiar, is generally familiar with. There's a lot of, I want to say that the right way, because there's a lot of powerful nuance inside your tool set and your offerings that not everyone is familiar with. So we're familiar with the general concept of it, of Matterport and that as a tool set. And there's a lot of other cool tools that stem off of it. One of which, or several of which, are actually AI powered tool sets. And so start us in this sort of space of like the tool we know, and then walk us into how AI is becoming a tool we didn't realize is really taking the power of the tool that you've already built and amplifying it further into the space.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. Appreciate it. And
Yeah.
appreciate being here with everyone. Thanks for having me. Yeah, so VHT Studios, we are a residential real estate photography company that was doing a lot of Matterport tours. I'm here in New York and Connecticut, but we've been doing them across the country. Just recently in July, Matterport acquired VHT Studios as a tool to be able to go out and capture more spaces. Matterport itself has captured over 10 million spaces and over 30 billion square feet of spaces, what we call digital twins. And these are precise digital twins of the interior spaces. So it's a spatial library, and it's the largest that's ever been created. So we're able to now use this property intelligence to work to enhance experiences within the spaces themselves. I think, when I think of AI, I generally think of helping to stimulate human intelligence. That was sort of the term I came up with, because it really does touch a lot of different things. Kale brought this up with ChatGPT, but there's so many other things that AI is touching. And with us at Matterport, we have a product called Cortex, and it's a machine learning product, so that every single tour that we upload into the system is learning and getting smarter and smarter. And now we're able to identify things that are in our tour immediately. And now you can start seeing the value of that, especially when you're talking about places that are tens of thousands of square feet with lots of intricate little things within there. Facilities management is a very good example, because maybe they have sensors that they need to detect. So with Matterport and using AI and web services like AWS, you're able to have all of these systems talk to one another. And then through the Matterport product, because it is so precise, and we've been able to identify certain objects within a tour, we can actually provide the highlight of where that is. If there is something wrong with it, the AWS can talk to the Matterport and then provide that to a maintenance person who can go find it. And we'll also provide them the wayfinding to get there. So I was talking to Melissa yesterday about Roomba. Roomba is a really good example of AI, because every time it sweeps your home, it's getting smarter and smarter. It's understanding where the table is, understanding where the chair is, right? And we're doing something similar, where we're understanding what a table looks like, or what type of table that is. And we're able to, again, because we have so much of this data and we're doing so much of this crunching of data, we're able to then supply to our partners so that they can utilize it to make their tours more effective for themselves, to be able to get more in depth. Here in residential real estate, we use it in ways of targeting highlights within a tour, let's say. Let me share my screen with everyone quickly. So what you're looking at here is a Matterport tour that was done for the towers at Waldorf Astoria. There's a little play button right here, which can take somebody through the tour. And you can see I'm just doing a walkthrough of the tour. And if I'd like, I can stop it and turn it. And then we have these great highlights where I can identify different things within the tour. So now it becomes the digital twin of this space needs to be super accurate, because we need to be able to put this tag where it belongs. Maybe it's the faucet or the faucet type. That's another opportunity for us to call out, sorry, you can't see that, for us to call out features and benefits within a space. So really taking the marketing aspect of just looking at a space to the next level, right? Being able to really almost physically be in that space and not touch, but get pretty close to touching the types of appliances and finishes and different things like that that are in the space. And then beyond the visual part is the 3D map. So there is a 3D map of every space as well. And those 3D maps are being used in the architects and engineer industry or construction industry to pull out CAD files. and be able to use Revit and other building software to be able to build out spaces. So if it's a gut renovation type project where you think, well, I don't want to highlight what's in there, what you really want in that case is what's behind the tour. It's that 3D model of the space so that you can accurately build on top of it and be able to do that quickly, efficiently, and most importantly for most, inexpensively compared to, you know, what we were doing years ago. I'm going to stop sharing now. Yeah, there are so many different wonderful use cases for Matterport and how it's being used to support AI. There's a wonderful site called Matterport Discover, where you could just see thousands of Matterport tours that were done, like the pyramids in Egypt, Air Force One, you know, so there's just real cool stuff that Matterport is doing and getting out there. But for us, it's building that spatial library, that library of data that we can now utilize to help our customers and help the industry, really. Is that a good one?
Yeah, Eric, very, very well said. I was listening to an interesting podcast, Sam Harris, Making Sense, and one of the ways he described AI had to do with that it's every time it's interacted with and some new data comes in and it learns a little bit, if you ask it the same question a minute later, even the act of asking the question once informs the answer the time you ask the question the second time. And I think this is, you know, this the stuff you've just covered with Matterport is this really interesting intersection of like stuff that for all of us is a kind of data that is very accessible, right? Like we all understand like photo, visual data, that kind of stuff. But the news has really been talking about the language part, the data that is words and copy and, you know, kids writing essays and lawyers submitting briefs and that kind of stuff that's language centric. And what you've just helped open our eyes to is, well, actually, there's a whole bunch of other data that is all this visual imagery data. And not just visual imagery, but part of what Matterport has inherent in it is not flat images, but essentially spatial relationships between distances, measurements, right? X, Y, Z axis data. And that data is itself a set of data, right? Like I designed a space in my house a while ago and had to go search out what is the right height of a counter. I was building the base frame for a countertop. I didn't know what the right height for a countertop was. And I had to go find it out. Well, maybe we'll come to find after a whole bunch of Matterport scans that while the architectural and code books say it's 32 inches, actually what people really build in their homes is 31 inches or 33, you know, like maybe we'll find that there's something different than what the textbook says in reality because of all this kind of data. So anyway, really interesting stuff. Melissa, we're going to come over to you next because there's a whole bunch. You're going to bring a lot of power to this conversation. There's a whole bunch of intersections of this AI topic as it relates to listings, the brokerage community, multiple listing services, who owns what, who has what rights to do what, right? So many different branches here. So let's go talk and help walk us through and understand some of the constraints, copyright ownership information, all that stuff. Help us understand that and how you and OneKey are thinking about this.
Sure. Yeah. So this is something that, you know, we think about really with any tool or technology that we introduce that we're going to be rolling out to our subscribers is trying to make sure that they're protected, anything that they're using and putting into their listings, that we've covered everything having to do with copyright on it. This really starts coming into play when we're looking at these different AI tools, so ChatGPT or any other ones that would be potentially creating descriptions or marketing copy for you. Because when you go in and you put these prompts in and it creates this, you know, really beautiful description, who owns that creative content? And so you're now putting this listing description in your public remarks field, and it's getting published into the MLS and distributed to, you know, thousands, 50,000 realtor members and then their clients and out on their IDX websites and public portals. And you may not actually have the license to use that information in that way. And the same thing can go with photographs. And, you know, I haven't read the terms of use on Canva or on ChatGPT specifically. And I'm not an attorney, to be clear, but if you are using your own photograph, but then you're overlaying it on top of a photo that's available in a library in one of these products, you'll need to read their terms of use to see who actually owns the copyright for that product that you've created. And then, you know, ChatGPT the same way. You know, whatever the algorithm is that's coming up with that description, they may very well own the copyright on that description. So just a word of caution, I would say, when using these really great tools that are capable of some beautiful work, just know, you know, go into it with your eyes open, be familiar with the copyright, and because that is one thing that OneKey MLS, you know, we're looking at some different tools out there that utilize this and want to make sure that if we're doing anything to create image tags for you or to create any kind of photo descriptions, that information is ours to be able to copyright for you or belongs to the listing agent. So if we're offering it, don't worry, we are doing our due diligence on it. But if it's something that you're sourcing yourself, make sure you do that work. So that being, I would say, the word of caution, there is a lot of really, really exciting things that AI is able to do or starting to be able to be explored within the MLS space. And I think a lot of it does start with the photographs that are uploaded. And I think this is also a great reason and reminder for everyone, upload photos, first of all, and then upload great photos. Because we're getting to a point where there could be hundreds of tags that are generated off of those. And those tags are going to help you with your SEO when those go out. They're going to help you with ADA issues and compliance, because that ends up in the metadata. Descriptions can be generated off of those. And so that's kind of the next step that I think people are looking at in the MLS space, is being able to tag those photos, say what the label is for the room, and then from there being able to generate descriptions from those photos. From there, there's another step where they're saying, okay, if you've generated all these tags off these photos, obviously you'd want the listing agent to be able to go in and verify, like, yes, that is true. That is what you see in that photo. But when those things are verified, imagine how much more comprehensive your listing input page could be. You know, when it's able to go in and say, you know, yes, it is this room, and within those room, you have these room features. And then there's great tools, you know, Matterport, I think, being one of them, Cubicasa being one of them, where they can generate floor plans, and then even potentially down the road, be able to identify what the rooms are and what the dimensions, the length and width of those rooms are. So it's really exciting stuff that is happening. And then I think even from there, one thing that's being explored, and if anyone wants to go take a look at how this could work, Realtor.com has rolled out their dream home, or it's the dream AI home. It's Realtor.com/AI/, and you can actually start to do searches based on all of those tags and the things that are being recognized in the photos. So imagine right now your MLS experience. It's this utility. You go in, you punch in all the data, you upload the photos, and it's a database that holds all this stuff. And it can become something that actually works more for you in the future, where you can upload photos, and then later someone could say, man, I really love how that kitchen looks. Bring me back listings that have a kitchen that looks like that. And so it's just going to really reinvent, I think, the way that things are searched for, and that the consumer downstream works too. Yeah. So definitely a cool tool on Realtor.com if anyone wants to go take a look at that. We had an education conference yesterday for our Long Island subscribers, or they held an education conference, and we had an MLS track, and Jack Miller from T360 brought that up and showed everyone, and I think it was very well received.
Yeah, that's it. I want to go back to one of the things you said and put a sort of fine point on it, which is, you know, so you're an agent broker, you're uploading 32 photos, right, on your average listing, or some you could tell me the actual average, but let's hope it's 32, right? Great photos, all that kind of stuff, and a Matterport tour, of course. And in that, it's not that the agent needs to go into each photo and tag, shaker style cabinets and blue this and brass this. And like, it's not that the agent is going to do all the tagging, it's the AI that goes
Correct.
and takes those 32 photos, scans it, and might come up with hundreds or even 1,000 plus tags per image, possibly, right? Like just a tremendous amount of metadata
Mhm.
created sort of in the background, not by the agent. And then, as you said, maybe there's processes whereby those auto-generated tags are validated, right? So the photo of the rooster on the wall doesn't turn into chickens as a feature.
There's chickens in the
Chickens in
home.
the house, right?
Yes.
There's a chicken coop in this
Yes.
property. No, there's actually not, right? So like there's a little bit of that validation, right? I'm using something humorous here. But that actually, and it now, as we move forward, as you're sort of talking about search tools, it's not necessarily that someone needs to type in that they're looking for shaker style cabinets. They might not even know what that means. If you said those words, they're like, I can't describe what that means, but they see an image of another home or another listing, and they're like, I like that. Show me more like that. And
Yes.
that nudges and influences the algorithms that are delivering them listings that fit their criteria. And those criteria, we're all familiar. One Key has a beautiful user interface where you can go through and change the sliders and how many square feet and bedrooms and bathrooms. But all of a sudden you might have a whole host of new kind of tools that allow you to filter without using language actually to do the filtering.
Brian, if I could just
Yeah.
add what you're saying, you don't even have to do anything. It'll sense how much time you're lingering over
Lingering on one photograph and be like, oh, we think they like this, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's going to draw conclusions, add weights and things to the different values in your algorithm. Yeah.
But Brian, can
Yes,
I
sir.
also just add, you can't, so for this to work, real estate professionals have to understand that they've got to load high quality photos
Mhm.
and a complete set of high quality photos. And consumers are going to really, I think, fall in love with this technology and start to expect this technology. So I think there is a role that real estate professionals have to play, and that is understanding what their role is, especially listing brokers, in getting those photos up as quickly as possible and really representing that property as effectively as possible. And we can't take that for granted. We've got to really make it very clear that, that's going to be the foundation, the building block for this technology to kind of rest on.
Yeah, it's good data, right? Data is the new gold, right? That's this new key resource. Yeah. It's interesting. I'm sort of thinking about this when I was looking for a home a number of years ago. A nice, big, graciously sized dining room was an important feature to me, right? I'm hosting family dinners, bringing everyone around the table, all that kind of stuff. And that's not a thing you can really search by, right? You can't search by, I want a large, relative to the house, I want a large, spacious dining room. I think that's in our near future. I think that's around the corner, empowered with Matterport specifically, or Matterport type, like spatial data, good imagery. Like I might be able to just sort of be like, this is a feature that matters to me. Give me listings that give me this, that help me check this box without sifting, right? It's done the sifting for me.
Yeah, and I think it may even take some of the subjectiveness out of it. If it's saying, okay, like based on total square footage or, square footage of that particular floor, and this is the space, versus, potentially, and let's say we had an input field, just being wild for the point of this. And someone could say large dining room, yes, equals yes. How many people, first of all, that's subjective. Second of all, how many people aren't going to check that off? How many people aren't going to select?
Oh, yeah, this one's totally large. Yeah, 2x2 table. Yeah, that's definitely
right.
large.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. But maybe they do have a huge one, and this they're rushing to get their listing in, which we all know totally happens. And so they don't select it, and then it's not going to return in your search. So you need something that kind of takes that element out of it, the subjective element, the element of like not caring about a really comprehensive listing, which I think is always a mistake, because the more comprehensive it is, the more searches it's going to return in. But yeah, so it can really, I think, improve things, or even like open concept type of layouts and the primary bedroom on main and things like that can be captured with these things that people aren't necessarily putting in, but can be very, very valuable for someone who's searching.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, with this, Kale, we're going to turn over to you, or come circle back to you. Can you, so our audience is pretty familiar with Matterport, obviously familiar with OneKey, and many of them I'm sure are familiar with MarketProof, but maybe sort of anchor everyone again and refresh like what MarketProof does, and then dive into a little tour of you've built this cool new
Yeah.
AI assistant tool that's being used to write some property descriptions. Like,
Yeah.
let's go check it out.
Yeah, cool, great. All right, so this is one of the solutions in the MarketProof platform. This is called MarketProof Pro. And this is a place where we're keeping track of all buildings, residential buildings in New York City, and all the units inside of them. So right here on my screen, I have One Wall Street, a big building, obviously in Lower Manhattan. And we're keeping track of everything that's going on in this building, how many units are sold, how many are in contract, how many are currently listed, how many are left. We generate visual representations of buildings in a stacking plan. The software is, the algorithms are creating all this stuff. And then we get into the individual units. And this is where I'm going to show you, I'm going to show you how how we're using AI to help in the creation of listing descriptions. And then there's other stuff that we're going to be releasing soon as well. So I just picked a unit that has never been listed. This is, what we call a shadow unit. It's a unit that's built, but hasn't been sold. So listing description has never been written for this. There are no photos. This is at the very beginning, right? So we have a floor plan. This is coming from the offering plan, right? So you can see how kind of schematic and crude it is. It's not marketing ready. And so what we're going to do is we're going to click on the AI assistant button here. And what the AI is going to do is it's going to reach out, it's going to look all around, and then it generates a bunch of different features that it thinks this particular unit has. So that's come from other units in the building, from the offering plan itself. I happen to know that this building has a Statue of Liberty views, Liberty. And so I'll add that in. And so now we kind of have a list of features. One of the weaknesses of ChatGPT is that it only knows what it knows. And that's from a certain point of time. I happen to know a lot more. I'm the listing agent, and MarketProof has all this additional information about this building. So what we're going to do now is we're going to just click generate. And what we've just done is we've just sent 20 different data elements about that building, plus the features that you see in this little list here. It's sent all that into ChatGPT. It's written up. Now it's going to write something up, and it's just sending that back to us. And so,
Impressive.
rather than getting something
Happening right in front of our eyeballs. Like,
yeah,
here we go.
This is something, like it doesn't know the offering plan ID, right? So, and if probably the Statue of Liberty view is in here somewhere. And so now it's, in 10 seconds, we've got something that's specific to this unit, not just generalized versus what ChatGPT will give you on its own. So this is just, so we can copy this and drop it in somewhere else and then put that into the MLS along with all the other stuff you need to do. But now just a big chunk of work that you or your assistant or somebody might have had to do was just reduced by, 60 to 90%. So this is our first foray into it. Now what we're working on is similar to what we just heard about in Matterport, but from a textual point of view versus a visual one, where we do the same thing with all kinds of features and amenities down to really granular details, and then bring all that together across, all the buildings in New York City.
Yeah.
So, what kind of stoves, right, et cetera, down to, what kind of wood floors, really granular details. And how does that relate to the sales and performance of the building overall? Can we correlate the features and amenities to what actually took place?
To trajectory, pace, velocity of pricing, discounts, all those other kinds of things happening. Now you can try to understand those effects as related to different, sources across all these sort of AI powered
Yeah,
data.
so when the
points.
people are planning new buildings, they can see, what happened with
Yeah.
others that came before us, or you as a buyer see how those things went as well.
Yeah, no, that's really impressive. I think a follow-up question here is so you showed it, and you sort of when you shared the screen, you had 20 or something like tags that were sort of auto selected in there. But as it wrote the description, it seemed clear to me, and I think for our audience here to sort of help illuminate this point, it's not just those 20 words or tags that the AI is using to power what it's writing, right? You didn't have that offering plan file number as one of your tags, but there's a whole data set that's sitting behind about this building and property sitting inside the data set. And it's all that data plus the chosen attribute tags, and together those are creating this AI first draft, right?
Right. So thanks for spoon feeding me.
No. I mean, it's just like you, and I'm just trying to help.
There's all
help
this.
the audience here, really
Yeah.
understand what just happened there in front of their eyes.
Yeah, there's all this other stuff happening underneath. But the idea is like it only knows so much.
Mhm.
So we're just trying to feed in all kinds of additional information so that it's really good at writing.
Mhm.
But it doesn't have all the knowledge. So if we combine those two things together, you get something much more powerful.
Yeah. Very much agreed. I think, we're going to save a couple minutes here to go to and redo our poll here in a second. So Gary, that's beginning warnings for you, or heads up for you. I'm going to post into I think I will successfully put into the chat. Kathleen just reminded me, and I actually had seen this article, but forgot to bring it up, that the HGAR's general counsel, Brian Levine, great name, wrote a very interesting article recently for the Real Estate in Depth, but it was sort of Barrister's Briefing is the title of it, Artificial Intelligence, the Pros and Cons for Real Estate Practitioners. So it's another great little piece. And I'm going to paste that link here in the chat for everyone to go click into. Oh, wait, Gary, Gary, you're going to have to post it to everyone because
I just changed it.
Oh, you just did. I can now post to everyone. We'll do it here in a second. And why don't you we'll launch our next our redo of the first question. It's still not letting me chat to everyone.
Brian, are you looking for the link to the article?
No, I have the link to the article, but I want to paste it for all attendees into the chat. But I think Gary may have to do that.
One moment.
Here we've got all the things coming at you today. So while we launch that first question, I want to go to the panelists here, sort of as we're sort of wrapping, and ask. I'm a big fan of sort of asking for prognostications, in part because we tend to sort of come back to some of these topics, and we've been doing this for enough years that now we've had this lovely moment where we've had prognostications 2 or 3 years ago, and then had a chance to revisit them a few times over the years and see how they're holding out. So I'm going to go around the horn. Melissa, we're going to start with you. Any commentary for our audience of sort of what you see the future holding, that you sort of are sort of sharing some forward-looking perspective that you think the audience might benefit from hearing?
I mean, I think, beyond what I shared about what I see coming up with MLSs, I mean, I just absolutely would say this is going to permeate everything that we do, every part of our business. It already has started. And so, I think we're going to find a lot more efficiencies and be able to really target things more. I'm not sure what else to share. Sorry.
That's okay. Okay, so permeation, right? Like I think that's what the key takeaway I've got there out of what you just said. And we just launched our first question. So, question for everyone: have you used an AI tool in your real estate practice? Okay, great. Well, people are answering that. Eric, I'm going to go to you next. commentary, thought, like, and it might just, it's either a prognostic, it's either like sort of a view of the future, or maybe, you know, word of wisdom as people are thinking about AI or talking about AI or incorporating it into their daily practice, might be a word of advice or guidance to help them be in a better place a year from now when we revisit AI.
Sure, absolutely. I think for the prognostication, visual search is, we're here. We really are. We have so much data, you know, listening to Cale and seeing what he's doing. By the way, Cale, I think we should be talking more. I think we could do a lot together because it's just a natural fit there. The other thing I would say, you know, for agents is know what's out there, know what you're competing against and what you could be doing to differentiate yourself. It's such a difficult industry for agents. You know, I've been in this industry for a lot of years and worked with many agents, and just being able to run your business better by understanding the tools that are available to you and how you can impress upon prospective sellers and clients on, you know, how you can do it different. I think that would probably be my best piece of advice is, you know, get in there, do it, learn it, and use it. It's going to help you for sure.
That's great. Okay. Cale, I'm going to come to you. Close this out, sir. Then we'll talk about the poll results.
Yeah, I just think this stuff is already well on its way to permeating everything. You know, I don't think AI is coming for people's jobs. But I do think that, you know, it's people who get good at these tools will be ahead of others. You know, it just frees up your time. It's just simple, right? You free up your time. That means you can be more productive at the things that real estate agents need to be productive at, which is increasing your expertise and forming more relationships to build your network. So all these tools, be it visual or textual or whatever, will all help towards freeing you up to be able to do that, the really valuable stuff.
Yeah.
Brian, can
Richard,
I chime in
yeah.
on that?
Yeah.
Because Cale just said something that I think is really important. From my perspective, real estate professionals are in the relationship business, just like Cale said, and they need to create those relationships based on trust. They need to not worry about providing data, but interpreting data, because everybody's got access to data. In fact, it's so much data that, you know, interpretation is that much more important. So this is just a tool that I think is going to become more and more valuable to help them concentrate on those things that really where they deliver their value. So I don't think there should be any fear, quite frankly, with these products that we're talking about today and the products that are going to be coming down the pike tomorrow that we don't even know about. I think we really need to view them as effective tools to help us become better as real estate professionals.
Yeah,
Definitely.
you know, someone used this, we were having this conversation about AI as a tool and things, and we sort of were having this conversation, likening it to other tools that we're also familiar with in the physical world, right? So if you think about like construction tools, right? Like you've got a hammer and a nail and a board, right? And a lot of people can step up, not everyone, but a lot of people can step up and use a hammer and pound a nail and stick it in the board, right? Like not everyone without banging their fingers or doing something cockamamie, but a lot of people can. But now you advance that tool, and that tool is now an air-powered nail driver that's got safety features, and it's got all these other features, and it's got rapid fire mode and pressure trigger mode and all these different modes and stuff. And that the tool advances a lot, which means you can do more cool things faster with the tool. But the level of expertise needed to use that tool successfully just also ratcheted up with the complexity of the tool. And I think, as I think about the real estate ecosystem, I sort of think this correlates over, because as the tools get more complex, it's almost that you need more the professionals in the space need to be even more well-trained, and there's almost job security built into the honing and improvement of the tools that creates a certain amount of job security of like, oh, well, I'm a person who does know how to use this more advanced tool. Not everybody can step up and use this more advanced tool without shooting everyone in the room full of nails, right? And so I think it's moving in a direction, Richard, that does echo what you just said. With that, I'm going to touch back. Interestingly, we had the exact same stats on the two polls as when we started and when we ended. And I think what our panel was thinking we might see in a difference in change, I don't think we anticipated that everyone would see it in a positive, rosy view at the beginning of the panel. And yet we had 100% rosy, positive view at the outset. And so that stayed the same through our panel discussion. And I also think our audience, 50% said they'd used AI tools and 50% said they hadn't used AI tools. And that stayed the same from the beginning of the conversation to the end of the conversation. Part of what we didn't necessarily get into was some of the things that are sitting underneath some of the other commonplace tools that agents are and brokers are using in the market already. Things like Canva, we were sort of talking about that on the prep call, things where there actually is AI power sitting inside those tools. You just may not realize it yet. And maybe when we get into our next, next year's, or who knows, this is moving fast enough. This might be a quarterly gig topic. So when we get to it again, we'll dig a little bit more into that topic of what AI is powering that we don't realize AI is powering, right? But I want to say a huge shout out and thanks to each of you, Melissa, Eric, Cale. Thank you for being here, sharing your wisdom with us. We really appreciate it. It was a phenomenal. I learned a lot. Thank you so much. I'm sure our attendees, both live today and after the fact, watching this did. Richard, Gary, Kathleen, Jeff, the whole team, thank you again. Really love these sessions, and I thought this was another great one. And Cale, thanks for helping pull the pivot. The turn brought us to a great place. So I'm glad we tackled this. We'll talk about some of these cool technologies another day and time with you all. So we look forward to that in the future. With that, everyone have a great day. Stay safe with all the
thank you, everybody.
smoke stuff out there, and have a wonderful day.
Thanks, Brian.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks, Melissa,
Bye, thank
Eric,
you.
Dale.